The Black Sea had always been a stage for power and intimidation. For decades, Russia flaunted its warships as symbols of strength, as tools of fear, as reminders to its neighbors that the empire was still alive. And among these tools of destruction stood the Kalibr missile-equipped warships, sleek, modern, and deadly, capable of launching precision strikes hundreds of kilometers away. But in late summer, as the war in Ukraine dragged into yet another chapter, something unthinkable happened. One of Russia's prized Kalibr carriers, a warship that had once roamed the Black Sea with arrogance, was caught, struck, and forced into retreat. Its image as a symbol of Russian dominance shattered in a single violent exchange. This is not just the story of a warship. This is the story of hubris meeting resistance, of arrogance collapsing into disgrace, and of a small nation daring to stand up against a giant. The rise of the Kalibr threat. To understand why this moment mattered so much, we have to rewind. When Russia first deployed the Kalibr cruise missile in Syria back in 2015, the world took notice. These missiles could travel low, hugging the earth, avoiding radar, and then slamming into targets with devastating accuracy. They were Russia's answer to America's Tomahawk. And in the years since, Moscow proudly broadcasted every launch, every strike, every successful hit as proof of its military superiority. So, when the war in Ukraine began, Kalibrs became a tool of terror. Fired from frigates and submarines in the Black Sea, they rained destruction on Ukrainian cities, striking residential areas, power plants, and even shopping centers. The missiles became a grim reminder that nowhere in Ukraine was truly safe. And the ships carrying them, like the Admiral Essen and the Admiral Makarov, sailed as predators, confident, untouchable, the hunters of the sea. Ukraine's turning point. But Ukraine was learning. In the first months of the war, it was Kyiv's skies and streets that bore the brunt of Kalibr missiles. But then, quietly, steadily, Ukraine built a different kind of strength. Western partners supplied advanced radars, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, and most importantly, the legendary British-made Storm Shadow and the French Scalp PG long-range missiles. Suddenly, the hunter became the hunted. In April 2022, the world had already seen Russia's pride, the cruiser Moskva, sent to the bottom of the sea by Ukrainian Neptune missiles. That strike became a symbol, proof that Russian steel could bleed, that Russian arrogance could sink. But for Moscow, that lesson was never fully learned. They believed lightning wouldn't strike twice. They believed their Kalibr ships were too fast, too well defended. They believed Ukraine could not possibly find them in time. They were wrong.
The night of fire. It was a moonless night. Ukrainian drones buzzed low over the waves of the Black Sea, scanning, hunting, feeding coordinates back to operators hidden deep inside undisclosed bunkers. Radar blips revealed the shadow of a Russian frigate, its silhouette unmistakable. It was carrying Kalibrs, ready to unleash another wave of strikes on Odessa and Mykolaiv. But Ukraine was ready. The order was given. A Storm Shadow missile roared into the night sky. Then another, and another. Guided by precision, they streaked low over the dark water, invisible to Russian radars until it was too late. The frigate's alarms screamed. Russian sailors scrambled across the deck, manning air defense guns, launching flares, desperately trying to swat the invisible killers out of the night. But then, impact. A thunderous explosion tore through the vessel. Flames erupted, metal screeched. The Kalibr launcher itself was struck, sending secondary explosions ripping through the ship's body. The predator was now prey. The retreat in shame. Russian state media, at first, said nothing. Silence filled the news waves as the Kremlin scrambled to contain the disaster. But Ukrainian sources released footage. A burning warship, limping through the water, dragging smoke like a wounded beast retreating into the shadows. It didn't sink, not yet. But the damage was undeniable. The Kalibr ship, once a symbol of terror, was now a symbol of weakness, fleeing back to Sevastopol in disgrace. For the sailors, the humiliation was unbearable. For Moscow, it was another catastrophic blow to the myth of invincibility. And for Ukraine, it was a triumph, a message to the world. We are not afraid. We can strike back. We can win. The global shockwave. The news spread like wildfire. Western analysts dissected the strike, praising Ukraine's use of modern weaponry and innovative tactics. Headlines around the globe declared it Ukraine cripples Russian Kalibr warship. Another humiliation for Putin's navy. Black Sea dominance shattered once again. For Russia, the embarrassment was profound. Every warship in the Black Sea was now a target. Every patrol carried the risk of destruction. The once proud fleet, built to intimidate NATO and dominate the region, now cowered closer to Crimea, afraid to venture too far into open waters. Ukraine had not just won a battle. It had shifted the psychology of the war. But this was just the beginning. Because what followed was not silence. What followed was retaliation, escalation, and a desperate attempt by Russia to restore its pride. But could they recover from the blow? Or had the Kalibr warship's disgrace marked the beginning of a deeper collapse? The answer lies in the days and nights that followed, when the war at sea took a darker, more unpredictable turn. The sound of the Kalibr warship's engines roared through the Black Sea, but the noise could no longer mask the reality. Ukraine's strike had broken its pride, its steel frame groaning under damage no one in Moscow wanted to admit. The crew, disoriented and humiliated, scrambled across the deck, knowing that the warship once hailed as Russia's symbol of dominance was now reduced to nothing more than a wounded beast limping back toward port. Ukrainian intelligence celebrated the moment with quiet determination. They had spent weeks tracking the warship's movements, predicting every maneuver, every attempt by the Russian Navy to hide its prized Kalibr-class vessel. But no deception could hide it from Ukraine's upgraded drones and missile guidance systems. The strike wasn't just about sinking steel, it was about sinking Russia's reputation on the world stage. As footage of the burning warship spread across Telegram channels, Twitter feeds, and international media outlets, shockwaves erupted. Russian state media tried to downplay it, calling the damage minimal, and insisting repairs were already underway. But the truth couldn't be hidden. Satellite imagery and video from Ukrainian drones told a different story. The mighty Kalibr warship, once seen as untouchable, was now leaning, smoke trailing into the sky, its systems disabled, its crew demoralized. For ordinary Russians, the news was devastating. Families who once boasted of their country's naval strength now whispered in markets and metros about the humiliation. Veterans shook their heads, recognizing the pattern. Russia's navy, once feared, now trapped in a cycle of embarrassment. First the Moskva, now the Kalibr. Each loss was more than military hardware, it was a psychological blow to a nation already cracking under sanctions, inflation, and the constant drip of bad news. Inside the Kremlin, the mood was furious. Commanders were summoned, reports rewritten, excuses manufactured. But no excuse could erase the fact that Ukraine, a country Russia once dismissed as weak, had outmaneuvered and outsmarted one of Moscow's most prized assets. The sinking was proof. Russia's navy was no longer safe, even in waters it claimed to dominate. For Ukraine, the moment was electrifying. Soldiers on the front lines erupted in cheers when they heard the news over radios. In small villages scarred by war, families lit candles not only for the fallen but also for victory, a reminder that resilience and courage could shatter even the most powerful weapons.